Hi, my name is Michal Shapiro. I'm the founder of Krav Combat Academy. I want to address an issue that's come up. It's gotten a lot worse in the last few months, and that's the issue of Jews being attacked in the streets, particularly in Brooklyn, and I'm familiar with the recent attacks in Crown Heights. I wanted to share with you some information about how you might be able to prevent violence in the streets. Obviously, we need to have community leaders, police, community watch groups to come together to find a more permanent solution. But when you're walking down the street and you are attacked, God forbid, in those first few moments, no one's there to help you. It would take at least several seconds, if not minutes, for the police or watch groups to come and assist you. So you need to be prepared to deal with violence on your own. And even if you are prepared, that means that you're trained, or you have some sort of weapon on you, or you just have the mindset that says, I'm not going to let this happen, I'm going to fight back. Even with all that, you need to have a state of awareness about what happens before violence occurs in order to see it coming. If, let's say, I'm walking down the street and somebody steps in front of me and asks me a question, and while I'm engaged with his question, his friend comes from behind me and hits me in the back of the head with a brick, I have no way of dealing with that. Even if I'm trained for, say, 20 years in martial arts, I can't defend that if I don't see it coming. So understanding how violence occurs in the street, the steps that lead to it, is very, very critical. In fact, it's more important in many ways than the physical techniques one might use to protect oneself. So I want to go over some of those ideas. I want to talk about some strategies that you can use to preempt violence before it actually occurs. And I hope that this information will be useful to you and you can share it with your friends and family. The first principle that you need to know is that if you learn nothing else, self-defense is a mistaken term. Self-defense implies that you are reacting to something coming your way. So it's often taught that way in the martial arts class. You get grabbed, you do this. If someone tries to punch you, you do that. Again, the problem is that the context was not given to you. It's not like someone materialized out of thin air and hit you. There were steps that led to that point. And if you are only beginning to understand that you're attacked when you're already grabbed, you're already being punched, like I mentioned before, this scenario, it's too late. So it's critical that you think differently about self-defense. You must be proactive, not reactive. Or to put it differently, be first. Always be the one going first. You're the one being first means either running first, yelling first, using physical force first, but be the first one to go. The saying is, whoever goes first with the most comes out best. The most means the most physical or significant physical force or the most effective strategy. Israel proved that during the Six-Day War. They were surrounded by much bigger armies, and they won the war because they preemptively attacked with significant force. They knocked out the airfields of the enemy, and for the next 6 days they had an overwhelming advantage, and that's what made them win the war. Being first will give you that overwhelming advantage. And so it's critical to establish it. The Gemara says, in a case of life or death, if somebody's going to kill you, get up first and kill them. So being first is the principle that you must internalize from this video or from any self-defense training that you may take. Being first, again, doesn't necessarily mean hurting somebody. It may mean running, but be first. That's critical. In order for you to be able to be first, you need to be aware of the problem. You need to see it coming. So let's talk about the mentality of the street criminal, with the strategies he will use based on that mentality, what to look for in order to subvert his strategy, and hopefully prevent violence if that's possible. The bad guy, you understand, is not looking for a fair fight. He's looking for easy prey. He's looking for somebody who will be easily dominated. He's looking for that unfair advantage. A common way for him to get it is for him to ambush you. So he knows that, and he's going to be selecting targets in the street. He's going to be looking for the person who is unaware. So everyone knows that being aware in the street is important because it helps you detect danger when it comes in. But what I want you to start thinking about is that it's not a reactive state of alertness. It is a proactive strategy. When you are walking around the street alert to what's around you, including what's behind you and the sides of you, it will actually make the street criminal decide to select someone else. He's less likely to select a target that he cannot approach without them being aware. So it's not a defense, it's really an offensive strategy. When you walk down the street, you should be alert just the way you are when you cross the street. So you would never cross the street texting and not paying attention to traffic. You would never cross the street, playing with your keys or daydreaming about something or even reading a sefer. You would lift your head up and you would look both ways before you cross the street. That's a state of relaxed awareness or relaxed alertness, and that's where you should be when you walk the sidewalk or anywhere else outside of your home or your office or shul. You should be in a state of relaxed awareness, not expecting danger, but just relaxed and paying attention to what's going on. When you walk that way, the bad guy sees that, And again, he will look for somebody who's less aware and let you go. So it's an offensive strategy. Think how important that could be if you could avoid the tragedy from the beginning, just by being a little bit more alert. It's very, very important. The next thing to think about is confidence. When you're walking down the street, the bad guy is looking for somebody who he can easily dominate. If you're walking down the street like this, it's more likely he'll select you as a target, because if he believes that you're already or easy to be dominated mentally, then it's very easy to dominate you physically. But if you walk down the street with a confident stride, with an I can do it attitude, I can handle myself, I'm worth protecting. If you have that kind of attitude, the bad guy is not looking for somebody who's going to fight tooth and nail to protect themselves. Even if it's someone smaller than them or apparently physically weaker than them, if they have the warrior inside, they have a tiger that's going to come out of the cage so that they will do whatever it takes to fight that person off. The bad guy's looking for an easy fight. He's not looking for that type of a fight. It's more likely he will select someone else. So those two things right off the bat are proactive strategies. When you walk down the street, be aware and be confident. Walk down, even if you don't feel confident, walk with a presentation of confidence, and that will make you less likely as a target. Now, awareness is not something that's just about paying attention to what's going around you. You also have to know what to look for. We mentioned before I get to the what to look for aspect, it's important to see what's going on behind you as well as in front of you. So that might be accomplished by looking over your shoulder periodically, obviously listening for things behind you. But you can also use reflective surfaces. So when you walk down the street and you pass by a store, you can use the glass of the storefront window as a reflective surface to see what's going on to the side or behind you. As you approach your car, you can use the windshield as a reflective surface, or the finish on your car. Get creative with that kind of thing and begin to notice what's going on around you in a, again, 360-degree viewpoint. That will go a long way for your state of awareness, and if you see then a problem, you'll be able to deal with it proactively. So let's talk about some of the things that you would notice or should be looking for. Somebody who is a street criminal is going to be standing or walking, looking for a target. Okay? What he's looking for, again, is someone who is unaware of his presence, where he can attack first. In order to attack you, he has to close the distance. He has to be within this distance. If he's outside of your dollar amas, unless he has a firearm, he's not going to be able to attack you. Now realize, in the street, even if he has a gun, it's more like there's a strong possibility that he doesn't want to brandish the weapon so anyone else can see. He's going to come in close with it. Okay, so he will be looking for the type of person he can approach. It's also more intimidating when you have a weapon up against you than if it's further away. So thinking like that, the bad guy may, even with a weapon, with a firearm, want to close the distance. But any other type of weapon or using his bare hands, he's going to need to close the distance. As he approaches, notice how if you see somebody you don't know approaching you with, it looks like he has some intention to come to you, and you see his head turning this way and that way as if seeing if the coast is clear, that's a cue. Look for that type of body language. If he touches his face, brushes his hair, scratches behind his head, research has shown that before an attack, people who want to conceal their intention will touch their face in some way. They call it a grooming cue. That's to prevent their emotions from revealing their intention. So I compare it to, like, if you hear bad news and for whatever reason you have this urge to laugh nervously and you try to conceal that laugh by doing this to your face, that distraction by touching your face helps you hold those feelings in so you don't show how you feel. The bad guy is going to feel adrenaline. He's going to feel amped up. He knows he's about to do something to somebody else that's a crime, that's assaultive, that may even result in injury to him. That's not what he wants, but it may work out that way. So he's coming forward, and he's going to be feeling the feelings he has. He's going to try to mask it by touching his face. So you see somebody who you don't know approaching you, looking around like his head's on a swivel, touches his face, brushes his hair, he's trying to close the distance. Notice that. If you see two people walking or more, a group of people, and suddenly one looks at you and then he communicates with his friend and then both of them look at you, or the whole group looks at you, that's a cue. You need to notice that. You do not want them coming into your space at that point, because that's what they're trying to do. They are trying to establish that advantage where they go first, and they are trying to make a one-sided fight dynamic where they go and then go and then go and finish. It's not, again, they're not looking for a contest match fight where we're exchanging blows. It's going to be 1, 2, 3 and done. So to get into your space is a key element there, and you need to prevent it when you see these types of things. When you see a person approaching you and their hand disappears anywhere along the waistline, under the shirt, behind the back, in the pocket, or perhaps his hand is kind of like squished up against his own side, so it looks like he's covering something in his hand, or his hand's not being held normally as he walks, so he's got the thumb kind of like tucked here as if he's palming an object. or he's got his fingers curled this way as he walks. So he's not presenting his hand in a normal way. He's probably holding something. Notice that. Don't let such a person come into your space. As a general principle, don't let anyone come into your space, into your daladams that you don't know. But sometimes in the street, it's not practical to do that. If you pass someone and you could make about 3 feet of space between them, do it. As you approach a street corner, as you come to the apex of the corner, try to maintain a gap of 3 feet when you come to the corner, because if someone's hiding over here behind the corner, if they wanted to get to you, they'd have to come into that space to attack you. And that gives you a little reaction time. But let's say you're walking down the street, somebody's coming really close to you. Because of the crowds, you can't avoid being close enough to this person. Maybe you get a feeling, maybe you don't. As a general principle, what I like to do, when a person comes into my space and I don't know that person, I suspect their intention, I immediately throw up what we call a fence. I bring my hands up and I start, let's say if I'm talking with the person, I'm using my hands expressively, but really I'm bringing my hands up in a position where I can use them if I need to defend or to attack. If I'm walking down the street and I see somebody walking and is too close for comfort within my space, I'll just scratch the back of my head. Okay, that way it doesn't look like I'm doing anything, but if that person were then to launch an attack, I can continue with covering and come forward with that person. But again, I'm not going to show you really defensive techniques, but just as an idea. If someone were to attack me, I would need to already have my hands in a position where I can be covered, and I would crash into them with my elbows and then continue my assault, because I'm trying to reverse the dynamic. He attacked first, I need to continue attacking. And reverse that by like a simultaneous cover and attack at the same time. That's really for another video, but the thinking is that I always want to be the one going first, and if I'm not the one going first, then I need to reverse that and be the one going me, finished. Anyway, your hands come up, try to maintain a gap. If somebody steps in front of you, I mentioned before the scenario where someone was coming behind you, how would you deal with that situation? Let's say, even if he didn't step in front of you, but someone you don't know talks to you, the answer is very simple. You just keep walking. Okay? And if that person, if you feel that it's necessary to engage in a conversation with that person, do it from the other side of them. So if this guy's here, if he steps in front of me as I'm walking, my hands are going to come up because he's in my space. I'm going to walk over here, and I will then turn and engage with him from this side, so that he's forced to turn and rotate to me. That allows me to now see him and what's on the other side of him. And if, let's say, I saw someone walking with intent towards my direction, especially if I see his head turning, grooming cue, or anything like that, I know there's something going on, and immediately I need to create space. I'll use my voice, and I'll say, back off! And I'll use that verbal boundary to warn that person not to come into my space. In the street, being loud, using your voice will call attention to you, so it's always a very good tool. And it creates this gap, which, again, is critical. So you want to create that gap. Some other things that we look for is that if someone, let's say, is talking to you, you don't know that person, and let's say you get a funny feeling about him, and suddenly he shifts his weight like this, or he even steps in towards you, but he shifts his weight in a way where he's now set up to launch an attack. The moment you see that shift in weight, he's preparing to hit you, you need to act first. Acting first may look like creating the gap, it may look like running, it may look like preemptively hitting if you're cornered, but looking for that type of body physical cue would be important. Okay, the preemptive strategy that I've been talking about, I've said it a few times, I want to reiterate it one more time, is the best strategy. Being first is always the key. If that means hitting somebody first, you have to understand how to set up the situation so that way you're on legal ground to hit someone first. It's not something I'm going to cover in this video, but it is a very, very important and very often ignored aspect of protecting oneself. Again, if you're not sure what his intention is, and you just stay here in this close proximity within this gap that you should be not in, and you're just you're waiting for confirmation of his intention, confirmation will result in injury to you. So you need to do something, and if you're not ready to hit him, you need to get out of there. And if you can't get out of there, you might just need to hit him. Again, not for this video, but something to think about. And if you want, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my email. If you have questions or you'd like some training, you can always contact me about this. I want to just wrap this up with some example scenarios. So we talked about walking to your car. When you walk to your car, it's very common that the bad guy will be waiting somewhere near a car looking for the person who's not paying attention, because very often people approach their car fixated on their keys. Never, ever Take your key out on the way to the car. Take your key out at home or in the office, and as you walk to the door, you now have your key in hand. You don't have to distract yourself with it. You also have a little weapon in your hand. How to use the key as a weapon is for another video. But the idea is that you're not fixated on that thing and you're not distracted, which will make you less likely of a target. Another thing to think about is when you walk and somebody, let's say, falls in behind you and you get a sense that maybe that person is following you. So simply imagine you're walking a line and that person's on the line behind you. You want to just cross off the line. So typically that might look like crossing the street. Again, you don't want to give up your sense of confidence. So you want to appear confident and not fearful as you do it. But you want to broadcast to this guy that you are aware of his presence. And as you cross the street, you're looking to see what he's doing. If he follows you across the street, then he's given up his element of surprise. And the bad guy will often decide, okay, let me find somebody else. Abort this mission, I'll find someone who's less aware. I had a personal story like that. I was walking down the street one time. I was on the sidewalk, here's the road, and here's another sidewalk, and then there was like a public school over here. And as I'm walking, there were 4 neighborhood teens who were being very rowdy and loud, and I got a bad feeling about them. So I crossed the street, and I walked a little bit further, and then I looked to see what they were up to, and I noticed they weren't there anymore. I looked behind me, and I see that now they position themselves on my side of the street, and they're quiet. They're absolutely silent, and I realized something's up. So I needed to go further to get to the corner to make a left to where I needed to go. I walked a little bit further, didn't get to the corner, but I got to the stairs leading up to the public school. So I walked up the stairs, and I prepared myself to cut the corner across the lawn to get to the other street, so that way I can get to safety if I needed to. And as I walked up the stairs, I was paying attention to them to see how they would react. If they were to go up the stairs, I knew then I had a problem. They were targeting me, and then I would either need to run or fight. Again, I recommend running against the group, but I would at least know what to do. They came to the stairs, they stopped, they sat down, and started talking. Now, I was either completely wrong, and they just wanted to have a talk on the stairs, maybe, or they saw that I was already alert to them, and they decided to abort the mission and find somebody who was less aware. But either way, notice what I did in that. I was always the one going first. I noticed them before they noticed me. I crossed the street in order to act preemptively. They then followed behind me, and then again, I went first. I went up the stairs, forcing them to either give up their intention or reveal their intention or abort the mission. So acting first is what helped me in that situation. It's critical that you think, again, in a proactive sense. And the 3 things that I want to reiterate is your awareness is not just a way of seeing danger coming, but it's a tool that's proactive. It broadcasts to the world that you are aware and will make you less of a likely target. Being confident also will help broadcast to the world that you are not someone to trifle with, and it will make you a less likely target. When you contact someone, when you make contact with somebody, that means when you draw close to someone, maintain the gap of space and pay attention to what they're doing, their body language. That will reveal their intention. And finally, be preemptive. Think preemptively. If you see a problem, you need to act first. Again, acting first may be by using your fight instinct, or it may be your flight, meaning you run or do some other evasive action, call for help or whatever it is. But be first. If you have any other questions, I'm sure there's these types of videos are inadequate in the sense that you go through the information very quickly and briefly. I welcome questions, I welcome information. I consider myself, even after 20 years of martial arts, a student. I'm constantly learning things. I'm sure people have questions, comments, maybe other YouTube videos that they would like to share with very valuable information on this topic. I welcome all of that, and please contact me by emailing me at fightingrabbi@gmail.com. You can also check out my website, kravcombatacademy.com. Thank you.